Hello and welcome to Events Dear Boy, the podcast for anyone involved in business events. If you're a conference producer, corporate event organiser or events agency, then we're here for you. We share the highs and the lows, the best practices and the horror stories, and you can expect ideas and inspiration and maybe some laughs too.
And if you're a speaker at these events, then we're also here for you. We talk about how you do it, what makes speakers nervous and how it feels when it all goes brilliantly or terribly.
My name is Catherine McNamara and I'm the marketing lead at the talent agency Pomona Partners and someone who has organised many business events in my working life. Alongside me is Pomona Partners founder and professional speaking veteran Tom Cheesewright.
Each episode, we're joined by a guest from the business events space, either an organiser or a speaker. We ask them to share their experiences, both good and bad, and their tips for other people in their positions.
And this week, I'm really delighted to say that we're joined by Naomi Timperley. Naomi, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
No, we're delighted to have you on, and we're going to launch straight in. Really difficult question. What is your area of expertise?
So I am a freelance growth and innovation consultant and I work on multiple projects, but my area of expertise is startups, scale-ups. It's predominantly in the tech, digital and creative space. So whether that's doing programs, whether that's working one-to-one with founders, but that's my sweet spot. I also do a lot around innovation. So I'm design sprint trained. I love helping people solve problems and creating solutions. So that's what I love to do.
So the next question is, how do you become a speaker? But I think your work history is so interesting that we ought to delve into that a little bit because it's quite an interesting journey to putting you on stage.
Yeah, do you know what? It's all by accident, really. So my first career was in the travel sector. So I was at Lund Poly for 3 years. Then I went to work for Balkan Holidays in London, and then I went to work overseas. And in the summer, I was a kiddie rep, and then also like a rep. So actually, I suppose my first public speaking was as a rep, and it was terrifying. I also had to do the reps cabaret. I won't even tell you about that. I used to get absolutely leathered to do it.
Has it left you with a favourite karaoke number?
Oh no! Honestly, I used to do the karaoke was the winter thing. Yes, I used to be a karaoke compere as well, but that's another story. So I went from that. Then I moved up north. Then I got into tech recruitment in the late 90s, and the company that I worked for, they sent me on a Dale Carnegie course. You know, how to win friends and influence people. At the time, I was sort of like in my mid to late 20s, and I didn't really appreciate it at the time. And I it's actually a brilliant book, and it's all common sense. And I remember I had to do a talk about the business that I was working at. That again, it was terrifying. And then I helped set up a travel recruitment company, and then I had 4 years out to have my daughters. And then randomly came across an American concept called Baby Loves Disco that was in 27 cities across America. And it sounded so cool because I hadn't been to a nightclub for 4 years. So I contacted them on a whim. And that was in 2007, February. We launched in London and Manchester in September 2007. But in the June, what we did invest in was PR. We had really low marketing budget, but we had PR. And literally, I was doing interviews with the Times because we had a 2-page spread in the Times knowledge supplement. So I'd been like a stay-at-home mum for like 4 years, and my brain hadn't really worked for a little bit, and then suddenly been thrown into this like world of speaking to journalists and things. So very, very quickly, it was just like a big tumbleweed effect. And in the following year, I got hounded by the BBC to do Dragon's Den, which me and one of my American business partners did. So I suppose doing that, and, you know, literally, to be fair, we kind of wung it because he came over from America literally the night before we were recording at Pinewood Studios. We had a little bit of a practice. And then we were in the den for an hour and 45 minutes. Whilst they were filming, Anthony Hopkins was filming Wolfman, which is quite funny. There was loads of people dressed as wolves. Got offered investment, turned it down. And then after it sort of came out, and we'd had loads of PR anyway, because by this time it was like we were in more cities, and the women that did our PR were like phenomenal. And I was in everything. Honestly, it was everything. Before, Dragon's Den was a little bit, didn't really do anything. But what Dragon's Den did give me was a platform around, I suppose, entrepreneurship. And that's where I started speaking. So I started getting asked to speak at various different things. They wanted to hear the Dragon's Den story. And the first thing that I spoke at, there was a guy called Ben Poland who was working for NatWest at the time. Yeah. And I met him at an event at, what's it called? That football place. I can't remember, near Victoria, that funny shaped building. And
Urbis,
we had Urbis. So I went to an event there, and he said, "Oh, I'd love to get you to speak at this event." And I was like, "Yeah, all right then." And it was at City's new ground. There was like a room full of 250 people, and I'd never, honestly, I nearly shit my pants. It was so scary. And do you know what? I'm not one of those speakers that would obviously when I did the TED talk, which we'll come on to in a bit, you kind of have to practice for that. But I'm one of those speakers that speaks from the heart, and I just tell my story. I know I'm very good at knowing time and stuff like that. And I just did it, and I smashed it. And then I just kept asked to do more and more. And then after about 4 years of doing the events business, we went, grew to 9 cities. We had a TV advertised album with Universal, more press. And it just grew from there. So I just learned loads and loads of things. And then I set up a youth enterprise employability company with 2 guys that I met on Twitter, as you do, to bridge the gap between education, employment and enterprise. So started doing loads of facilitation. So obviously when you're doing facilitation, you're talking in front of people. And I think that's a great way of building your confidence up as well. And it just sort of went from there, and I started speaking at more events, doing more panels, and I started getting paid to speak events. And I remember there was one particular event I went to actually, where I was speaking at this mumpreneur conference because I'd been labelled as a mumpreneur, which was very cheesy and I hated it. And the woman that spoke before me went over by 45 minutes. Which I was horrified by, and that's not professional. And I think she liked the sound of her voice a little bit too much. So I had to cut my speech to fit in with hers. And that was very, very difficult. But it just got better and better and better. And that's how I got into it. It was all by accident.
And how did the TEDx come about?
The TEDx talk come about because I'm very heavily involved, or was very heavily involved with youth entrepreneurship, because the Enterprise Lab was around that, and it's something that I'm really passionate about, especially helping young people. So I was connected with lots of different entrepreneurs and educators around the world. And one of them was a guy called Doan Winkle, which is a very unfortunate name, because Winkle, I used to call my vagina Winkle when I was a kid. But anyway, you can cut that bit out.
No, we'll leave that bit in, definitely.
No. And Doan was a professor of entrepreneurship at Illinois State University, which is in a town called Normal. And we were connected on LinkedIn, and then we became Facebook friends. And he organised the first TEDx in Normal, and it just sounded great. And I occasionally put stuff on Facebook, and I put it on LinkedIn about all the different things that I do. So, I have done some pretty amazing things. And so he basically contacted me the day after he'd done the first TEDx Normal, and he said, "I'd love you to come and speak at next year." And I was like, at the time, my daughter, who was 10, was obsessed with listening to TEDx talks. And I had a little video of her doing this little monologue with a cute hat on. I'll send it to you, Tom. It's so cute. And when she was 10, and she spoke really passionately, and she was basically just saying that unless everyone was starting to be nice, the world was going to end and everyone was going to die. It was quite profound. And I just said, look, I'd love to come and talk. I said, but I'd love to come and do it with my daughter. Here's a video of her speaking. He listened to that and he was like, right, I want both of you. So that was at the end of 2015, and we went over to Normal in Illinois, which you fly into Chicago, And me and Elizabeth did a talk. So she was then 11. She'd literally just started high school. And we did a talk on the power of children's ideas and how as adults, if we thought more like kids, we'd come up with better ideas. She was incredible. So we got there like the night before. We had this dinner thing with the other speakers. The other speakers were honestly amazing, and I followed their careers. And Elizabeth worked the room. That child has been taught very well by her mother. And even after we did the talk, another funny story. So I got this pierced in a tattoo parlour. I think just after we'd done the talk, but then I talked to everyone. So I was talking to this tattooist lady who does piercings. Turns out she's got a sex dungeon downstairs. So that's the only thing that Elizabeth remembers, is that I got my ear pierced in a place that has got a sex dungeon downstairs. Anyway, I digress. So yeah, we did the TED Talk thing. It was fantastic. It was really, really scary, but I loved every minute. And Elizabeth was brilliant. She was absolutely brilliant. And then the next evening after it, you know, we had another, like a mixer thing. And again, she was fantastic. So yeah, it was through a connection.
Unbelievable. In that entire answer, you triggered a memory by saying the words Lud Polly. And you dropped the Bob. Unbelievable. Yeah. Unbelievable.
Sorry. I thought you were just saying she triggered a memory with the word sex dungeon. So let's...
Not on this occasion.
Podcasters are going to go in a completely different direction.
Oh yeah, that's a different. You can check us out on the other podcast on OnlyFans for that.
So, what kind of events are you getting booked for today, Naomi? What do folk come and kind of tap you up for?
I'm very good at hosting. So I'm very good at asking questions. So I get asked to host a lot of events, great on a panel, but then also specialists, you know, the things that I'm passionate about. What I am not is one of those speakers who could come and just talk about any old stuff that I'm not passionate about. I can't do that, but I can host and I can do panels. But again, the panel would have to be a subject matter that I know about.
You're great on panels because you chuck grenades in, and I love that.
Yeah, I do that, and then I do that as a host as well. So at Climb 24 this year, I hosted 4 panels and was on one panel over a couple of days. But it's great because you always meet loads of amazing people. So, and I always keep in touch with people. So yeah, I love doing them.
I think I know the answers to this because of some of your answers so far. But what do you love about speaking?
I love that I still get incredibly nervous and I love the adrenaline. But I've got coping mechanisms for it. And I think if you're not nervous, there's something wrong. But yeah, I just love it. And I love, because I'm like, well, you could probably tell just by this podcast, I do like to crack a joke. And I find humour in anything and everything. So I read the room. I make sure I know who the audience is and I can adapt to the audience. Obviously, if it was like an audience full of nuns, I'd have to tone Naomi down, but I'm sure that I could find some humour in nuns.
And opposite end of the spectrum, what's the worst speaking experience you've ever had?
I'm going to go back to that one, the mompreneur one. That was just because I just think it was really unprofessional of the previous speaker, and I had to sort of adapt it. But yeah, there have been other ones. I think I was on a panel once actually with a Liberal Party MP. So when we had Enterprise Lab, we did this amazing event called Youth Enterprise Live. And I was on this panel and literally I can get a word in edgeways, not with this guy. He would not shut up. And I said, every time I was like trying to say something, he was like, oh. So yeah, probably that as well.
I find it hard to imagine you not just, throwing something at him these days.
to be fair, I wanted to. And actually, there is a video, and I'm going to send you the video, Tom, because it looks like I'm giving him like really dirty evils. in like a snippet roundup of the whole event.
Well deserved by the sound of it.
Yeah.
Given having dealt with things like that, what tips would you give other speakers?
I think hold your own. I think loads of tips. I think make sure you do your research. Make sure you do your research about the event. Make sure you do your research about who the audience is going to be. Coping mechanisms, as in how to calm myself down. I actually did EFT a couple of years ago, tapping. So
What's that?
Emotional freedom technique. So it's like it's called tapping as well. And you can use it to calm your nerves. So there's like points. You've got points there. You've got points there. You've got points here. You can do it for other things. I'll be honest with you. When I did it, I thought I was just doing it because I was nervous speaking. But then the woman started asking me a load of other questions. She went, is there anything else that you have an issue with? And I said, well, I tell you what, at the time I didn't have a degree. I've been to university subsequently since then. I've got a postgrad certificate because I attempted to do a master's without anything. And I said I had this boyfriend who asked me to do my 12 times tables once, and she was horrified, and she went, let's work on that. So we tapped it through, and it's a confidence thing. It's like, I'm like the fucking dog's bollocks, not the dog's bollocks, but, you know, I'm good at this. I can do my 12 times table. Nobody's going to question my intelligence, but you can do it for loads of other things as well. Sorry,
Brilliant.
I sworn again.
Wow. And what tips to event organisers to get the best from the speakers?
I think, okay, so I'm going to give you some bad stories from event organisers now. I'm not going to name any names, but there was a couple of occasions this year and last year where I have been asked to host things and asked to come up with the subject matter. Not asked to get the speakers. I'd be like, absolutely, that's not my job. Come up with the questions and some of the talks have been when they've come up with the subject matter, but they've expected me to come up with the questions without any context to it. So I think as an events organizer, that's a big no-no. I think giving the speaker as much information and prep as possible, making sure that you're on a call with them and you're talking them through everything about, you know, who the audience is, what they want you to get across, what the vibe is, all that type of stuff. I think it's really, really important because when they do it badly, it's not good.
No.
Wow.
I think we've all been
Mic
there.
drop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what? And I think that's a really great place to wrap up. And it's been unbelievable listening to that kind of backstory, Naomi. Really, really has been. And thank you so much for coming on.
I think you definitely take the award for the.
Yeah.
I think you definitely win the award for the most swears per podcast, but we like that. There's a bit of
sorry.
personality in there.
Absolutely. And thanks to everybody else for listening and watching. We hope you enjoyed this. And if you did, please leave us a review, like and subscribe. And most importantly, share the podcast with your colleagues and peers, whether they're fellow speakers or event organisers. And we'll be back soon with another episode. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.